how a central idea is developed over the course of a text. We're going to use the text we just read about a rose by any other name smelling just as sweet. So the first thing we want to do is figure out what's the overall argument that the author is making. And this is often revealed in the first paragraph. So let's take a look at the very first sentence in the very first paragraph. It says, names have power. Well, this is the author's entire argument. So everything in the text is going to be related to this key idea that names have power. So as we look for a central idea in the text, they need to be related to this key argument. So the author is going to argue that names actually do have power, unlike the argument that Juliet makes in the play Romeo and Juliet. So once we figure out a central idea, it's got to be related to this key idea. All right, so to find a central idea, what we want to do is we want to figure out what is the author arguing to add to the key idea, and where in the text does the author add details about this? Central ideas usually span across multiple paragraphs. So let's take a look at the next few paragraphs here. The author says, there is the many times replicated letter name effect, originally discovered more than 2 decades ago by J.M. Newton. Okay, so if this is going to be a central idea, it needs to spread across multiple paragraphs, and it's got to be related to the key idea that names have power. So let's see if the author adds more details about this. In the next paragraph, the author says, what's your favorite letter? Likely it's a letter in your name. So here we see the author's adding more details about this letter name effect that he discussed in the previous paragraph. If we keep reading, we see the author adds more details to this idea when he says, in a study of baseball players who died before 1950, the ones with positive initials like Ace lived an average of 13 years longer than those with negative initials like Dead. Okay, so I think I've found a central idea. The central idea that I've identified is that names have a profound impact on a person's preferences, like their favorite letter, and their well-being, like how long they live. Okay, so in order to figure out how this idea develops, I've got to explain where in the text the author actually introduces details about this central idea. So I might do this by saying something like, the idea is first introduced when the author explains the letter name effect, a study showing that people actually prefer letters in their own names. Remember that for it to be a central idea, there's got to be multiple places where the author discusses this in a text. So I'd have to add to this by saying something like, this idea is later developed in paragraph 4 when the author cites a study in which baseball players with positive initials lived an average of 13 years longer than those with negative initials. All right, so just to recap, in order to explain how an author develops a central idea, you have to first choose a central idea that relates to the overall key idea of the text. Then you have to explain where in the text these ideas are introduced. So you can use sentence starters like the ones that I used. This idea is first introduced, or this idea is later developed in paragraph number 4 or whatever paragraph. And then you just include the evidence that the author used to actually explain the central idea. All right, so now that you know the steps for figuring out how a central idea is developed over the course of a text, it is your job to go into the text to find another central idea. There are lots of central ideas in this text, so I can't wait to see which ones you find. Good luck!